If you're a fan of Family Guy, chances are you've got a character you ride hard for. Maybe it's the guy who makes you laugh the most. Maybe it's the one who you weirdly relate to on a spiritual level. Or maybe you just like their face. That's valid too. No judgment here. But here's the thing, your favorite character isn't random. It says something about you. Something you probably don't want people knowing about. And today, we're going to find out exactly what that is. We're covering the main crew: Peter, Lois, Meg, Chris, Stewie, Brian, Quagmire, Joe, and Cleveland. So settle in, grab your snacks, and let's find out what your taste in animated characters reveals about your entire personality. Let's start with the man himself, Peter Griffin, the guy whose face is basically the logo of this whole show. If Peter is your favorite character, first of all, respect. It's the safe pick, sure, but there's nothing wrong with going with the classic. It's like ordering a cheeseburger at a restaurant. Nobody's going to judge you for it. Well, I might judge you a little, but only because I'm jealous you made the right call. People who love Peter tend to be the funny ones in their friend group, not always intenses. But at the end of the day, Peter fans are the lovable chaos agents of any friend group. You make life more interesting. You make memories people will be telling for years, mostly starting with, "I can't believe you actually did that." You're the reason the group has stories to tell. So if Peter's your guy, you're fun. You're spontaneous, and you probably owe at least 3 people an apology. You know who you are, all right, Lois fans. Step forward. Don't be shy. A lot of people sleep on Lois as a favorite character, but honestly, the people who pick her tend to be some of the most self-aware people in the room. They just don't always get credit for it. If Lois is your favorite, there's a good chance you relate to that feeling of doing everything for everyone and getting absolutely zero recognition for it. You're the one who plans the trip. You're the one who remembers everyone's birthdays. You're the one who holds the whole operation together while everyone else just shows up and takes the credit. Sound familiar? Yeah, we see you. Lois fans also tend to have a very specific kind of patience, the kind that's been tested so many times. It's basically a superpower at this point. You can deal with a lot. You smile through it. You keep going. You handle it. But everyone has a limit. And when Lois hits hers. Yeah, that right there is every Lois fan after being pushed one too many times. And honestly, nobody can even be mad about it. You earn that breakdown. You put in the work. The other thing about Lois fans is that you really want to be appreciated. Not in a needy way, in a perfectly reasonable, completely valid way. You just want someone to look you in the eye and say, "Hey, you're doing a great job." Is that so much to ask? Apparently yes, because nobody in your life seems to get the memo. But here's what makes Lois fans genuinely impressive. Even after everything, you still choose to be the bigger person. Most of the time, you understand that the people around you are probably dealing with their own stuff, and you give them grace even when they don't deserve it. The key lesson for Lois fans: stop waiting for permission to stand up for yourself. Your patience is a gift. Don't let people treat it like a guarantee. Okay, Meg fans, this one's for you. And before anyone says anything, Meg is genuinely underrated. And the people who pick her as their favorite know something the rest of the audience doesn't. If Meg is your favorite, there's a real chance you connect with the underdog story. Maybe you felt overlooked before. Maybe you know what it's like to be in a room full of people and still feel invisible. Meg gets it. She's been living that experience for over 20 seasons. But here's what's interesting about Meg fans. They tend to be quietly tougher than they look. Because to keep rooting for someone who keeps getting knocked down, you kind of have to know what it feels like to get back up yourself. Meg has actually turned into one of the most capable characters on the show. She's good at sports. She's resourceful. She can handle herself in a fight in ways that would genuinely terrify most people. The problem isn't Meg, the problem is that nobody around her bothers to look close enough to notice. And if you're a Meg fan, you probably relate to that feeling of having untapped potential that the people around you just haven't recognized yet. You know what you're capable of. You just need the right moment and the right people to let it show. The people pleaser thing is real though. Meg fans tend to absorb a lot other people's frustrations, other people's bad moods, other people's problems. You tell yourself it's fine. It's not always fine, but you're loyal, you're principled, and you don't compromise your values, even when it would be easier to do so. That's rare. Genuinely rare. So if Meg's your favorite, you're probably the most resilient person in your group. And if anyone laughs at you for picking her, Just remember that Meg has outclassed every person who ever underestimated her. So will you. Now we get to Chris. And honestly, Chris fans might be the most surprised by their own choice when they stop to think about it. If Chris is your favorite, you've got a weird side. Not weird in a bad way, weird in a this person marches to a completely different drummer, and honestly I respect it kind of way. You find things funny that other people don't get. You have interests that take people a second to process. And you're totally okay with that. Chris fans tend to be pretty go with the flow people. You don't need to be in charge of the plan. You're happy to just show up and see what happens. Which is a very peaceful way to live, honestly. Less decision fatigue. More time for snacks. The downside is that because you are so easygoing, people sometimes try to take advantage of that. Chris is incredibly gullible. He'll believe almost anything if you tell it to him with enough confidence. And if you're a Chris fan, you might recognize that same thing in yourself. You trust people. You take them at their word. And sometimes that bites you. But here's the thing about Chris that doesn't get talked about enough underneath all the weirdness and the stumbling and the accidentally inappropriate comments. The guy has a genuinely good heart. When someone needs him, he shows up. When something actually matters, he comes through. He's not the smoothest guy in the room, but he might be one of the most decent, and Chris fans tend to carry that same energy. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're just trying to do right by the people you care about. And that, honestly, is worth more than being the coolest person at the party. So if Chris is your pick, you're a little weird, a little soft, and completely underestimated by most people. In other words, you're exactly the kind of person everyone ends up being glad they know. All right, Quagmire fans, I see you. Let's not pretend we don't both know exactly what we're walking into here. If Quagmire is your favorite character, the most obvious takeaway is that you've got a sense of humor that operates somewhere between edgy and haute. We should probably change the subject. You like jokes that push limits. You find comfort in dark humor. And you've probably cleared a room at least once in your life with a comment that made complete sense in your head. No shame. Some of the funniest people alive operate in that space. You just have to know your audience. But there's more to Quagmire fans than the surface level stuff. And this is where it gets interesting. Quagmire, for all his chaos, is actually one of the most authentic characters on the show. He doesn't pretend to be something he's not. He doesn't perform for anyone. What you see is what you get, and there's a real honesty in that. Quagmire fans tend to share that quality. You have zero patience for fake people, for hollow small talk, for social performances that drain your energy. You'd rather have one real conversation than 20 pointless ones. You say what you mean. People either love that about you or find it exhausting. Rarely anything in between. The flip side is that you're not always the easiest person to be around. Quagmire has very little tolerance for things he doesn't like, and he'll let you know. Quagmire fans can sometimes come across as blunt to the point of being harsh. The key is learning the difference between being honest and being unnecessarily rough. You can have both things, the truth and some basic tact. But for the people Quagmire actually loves, he's ride or die. He shows up, he changes, he tries. And Quagmire fans carry that same loyalty in them, even if they don't advertise it. So if Quagmire's your guy, you're authentic, you're unfiltered, and you're a lot more loyal than you let on. And somewhere, someone is really glad to have you in their corner, Brian fans. Welcome. Please find a seat. Take a moment to think about what you're about to hear, and remember I say this with love. If Brian is your favorite character, there's a version of you that really wants to be seen as the smart one, the well-read one, the one with taste. And look, maybe you are that person. But there's also a chance you're like Brian, where the confidence is running slightly ahead of the receipts.
So,
Brian
Mom,
fans
did you ever
tend to be
find
the
out
kind
what
of
was
people who
stolen from
discover
that
something, a book,
Nantucket
a
house?
band, a
I
podcast,
did.
a
Funny
philosophy,
story.
and
Never is.
immediately
It
need
was a
everyone
bottle of
around them to
shampoo
know
I must
about
have
it.
packed in my
Not
bag.
to share the joy
Oh,
necessarily.
no way.
More to establish
You
that you
did
found it first. That's a
How
Brian
does your
move.
fat
Classic
foot
Brian
taste,
move.
Mom?
And the writing
Apparently,
thing.
taking
Oh,
the rest of a
the
tiny
writing
bottle
thing.
of shampoo
If
is
you're a
considered
Brian
stealing
fan
nowadays.
and you have an unfinished
Answer the
project sitting
question about
somewhere,
the
a
foot.
screenplay,
How big was the
a
bottle?
novel,
No,
a
it was
business
small.
idea,
I thought you said
a
it was
playlist you've
tiny.
been
Would it pass
curating
through
for 3
airport
years.
security?
Just know
That's the
that you are not
threshold.
alone.
It was very
Brian
little.
has been
Oh, now
working
it's
on his
little.
novel
You're
for basically
all
the
over the
entire run of the
place.
show.
May we
At
see
a
the
certain
bottle?
point,
I would
the
love to
process
show you the
becomes the
bottle, then you'll see
identity.
how
But
ridiculous
here's
this
where
is.
Brian fans actually earn some real
Okay, so this
credit. You're
dinner's not
loyal.
one of our best
Like,
efforts, right?
Deeply,
Big whiff.
genuinely
I agree.
loyal.
Okay, let's
Brian
pile
will
that on too.
sacrifice a lot for the people he loves. He'll put himself in
Yo, that's
uncomfortable
borderline
situations,
huge, Mom.
have
The
hard
size
conversations,
is misleading.
do
There
things
was
that go
barely
against
any
his own
liquid left
interest,
in it. It was
just to
sputtering
be
to a
there for
finish.
someone
It
he
made an
cares
audible
about.
thud
That
when you put
matters.
it down.
Brian
I hated
fans
tonight's
also
chicken.
tend to be
I am
hopeless
not wrong
romantics,
here, okay?
even if
We
they'd
paid a
never
lot of
use
money for
those
that
words
house,
out
and taking
loud.
the ass end
You
of a
believe in
shampoo bottle
connection.
barely makes
You
a dent
believe
into
in
their
finding the
hull.
right person.
Definitive
And sometimes
proof that
that
your mother
belief
always
sends you chasing
describes
things
big
that
things
aren't
as
quite
being
right
smaller
for
than
you.
they are.
But you can't stop hoping
Did you
anyway.
hear that, Chris?
That's not
We've
a flaw.
all seen
That's
it,
just
Dad.
being human.
Aw.
Or, in Brian's case, being a dork who's trying his best. So if Brian's your favorite, you're smart, you're loyal, and you care more than you admit. Just maybe finish that project. Seriously, we all want to see it. And now we arrive at the fan favorite, the genius baby with a British accent and a murderous streak, Stewie Griffin. If Stewie is your favorite character, there's a very specific energy you're carrying. You look around at the world, and there's this constant, low-level frustration, like you can see exactly how things should be done, and nobody around you seems to be operating at that frequency. The bar is right there. It's so low. How is everyone managing to trip over it? Stewie fans tend to be the smartest person in the room type. Sometimes correctly, sometimes a bit optimistically. But either way, you've fully committed to that identity, and honestly, confidence is half the battle. The thing about Stewie that's easy to miss is that underneath the whole genius supervillain thing, he's deeply emotional. He loves Brian. He loves his family. Even when he acts like he doesn't, he genuinely feels things in a big way. He just buries it under sarcasm and elaborate schemes because vulnerability is terrifying, and Stewie fans, you know exactly what that's like. You lead with intelligence because it's safer than leading with feelings. You make the clever comment instead of the sincere one. You'd rather be seen as sharp than seen as soft, but those moments when Stewie lets the wall down even briefly are some of the most compelling moments in the show. Because underneath all that armor, there's someone who just wants to be loved and understood. Same goes for the people who love him most. Stewie fans also tend to have that one person, a Brian equivalent, who they secretly rely on more than they'd ever admit. That one friend who makes everything more bearable. If you have someone like that in your life, tell them. Seriously, don't wait until it's a dramatic moment. Just tell them. So if Stewie is your favorite, you're sharp, you're guarded, and you love people way more deeply than you let anyone see. Let the baby out sometimes. It's okay. Show fans. Underrated picks. Respect. If Joe is your favorite, you're probably someone who really values doing things the right way. Classic Joe, before the show started leaning into his misfortune, was genuinely the most honorable guy in Quahog. He didn't cut corners. He didn't compromise his values for convenience. He did what was right even when it cost him. Joe fans tend to be the moral compass of their friend group. The one people come to when they need an honest answer, not just a comfortable one. You'll tell the truth when everyone else is tiptoeing around it. That's not always the most popular role, but it's the important one. There's also something about Joe fans and the underdog story. Joe overcomes obstacles constantly, literally and figuratively, and he keeps showing up anyway. And if you gravitate towards that, there's probably something in your own life where you've had to push through when quitting would have been easier. That's not nothing. That's actually a lot. The newer seasons have made Joe more of a punchline, and some fans find that frustrating. But honestly, Joe finding small joys in his life, even through the chaos, is kind of beautiful if you look at it right. There's still something genuinely admirable about a guy who keeps his sense of humor through all of it. So if Joe is your pick, you're principled, you're resilient, and you care deeply about doing things right. The world needs more people like you. Even if your friends occasionally forget to invite you to things. And finally, Cleveland. The sleeper pick. The wait, really? Choice that actually makes a lot of sense once you get into it. If Cleveland is your favorite, you are almost certainly the most chill person in your social circle. You don't get worked up easily. You don't need to be the center of attention. You're just there, reliable, steady, the human equivalent of a good couch. And I mean that as a compliment. Cleveland fans tend to be the kind of people who go with the flow and somehow still end up being the wisest person in the room. You don't fight for the spotlight, but when you do speak up, people actually listen. There's power in that. Quiet power. There's also a dad energy to Cleveland fans. You're the one making sure everyone has what they need. You're the one hosting. You're the one who cleans up after the party. Not because anyone asked you to, because it just feels like the right thing to do. You're a caretaker by nature. Cleveland also has that quality of being flexible. He's reinvented himself multiple times on the show. Different cities, different jobs, different situations, and he always finds a way to land on his feet. Cleveland fans tend to have that same adaptability. When life throws you a curveball, you don't spiral. You adjust. You find a new lane. You keep going. And yes, Clevelanders have a limit. Don't mistake the calmness for spinelessness. When he finally snaps, it means something. Because when the most patient person in the room reaches their breaking point, you know it was real. So if Cleveland is your favorite, you're steady, you're adaptable, and you're the kind of person who makes everyone around them feel a little more at ease just by being there. That's a rare and underrated gift. So there you have it. Whatever character you picked, it says something about you, and hopefully something you can work with, whether you're the chaotic, lovable mess, the quietly exhausted saint, the underdog with untapped potential, or the genius baby hiding a soft heart. Family Guy's got a character for every kind of person. That's kind of why it's been running for over 2 decades. So drop your favorite character down in the comments. No wrong answers, except maybe Herbert. Actually, you know what? If Herbert is your favorite, just keep that between you and your therapist. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. It genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. And if you want more Family Guy content like this, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.
So, Mom,
We'll
did
see
you
in the
ever
next
find
one.
out